I'm going to talk about strategies for teaching online. And here at CITR, I teach the best practices in teaching online course. And so if you are going to be teaching online, that is something that you'll want to take. And you can take it in conjunction with in the same semester that you're teaching an online course. But if you can, it would be better to take it before. But what I'm going to talk about today is some of these key points: technology, communication, engaging students, managing the students and the class, providing feedback, and then some of the difficulties that you may run into. So obviously when teaching online, a big component of that is technology. And probably the biggest is going to be the LMS, so the Learning Management System, which in our case is Western Online. And D2L, Desire to Learn, is the system that we use. It's the software that powers Western Online. And we give workshops here at CITR, live workshops, webinars like this one, and we also do one-on-one consultations. And then, as always, you can call us, email us, Dawn and myself, and Roger can even help you as well if you have any issues working with Western Online. But this is the system that we use to deliver our online courses here at Western. Obviously, to do that, you'll need an internet connection. And that's something you'll want to consider depending on some of the things that you might use, like audio and video and things like that, especially video. Video can take a while to load if you have a slow connection. But audio, video, images, PDF files, Word documents, PowerPoints, things like that, those are all other things that you can use in your online course to deliver your content, help engage your students. But one of the things I like to tell people is don't reinvent the wheel. If you can find a video on YouTube, for example, that covers the objectives of what you're talking about, by all means, I say use it. You do have to consider things like copyright, and Linda Zellmer here at the library is a good resource for that if you have any questions. But generally, if something's on YouTube and available to the public, then it's pretty much free to use. I taught an online course for Spoon River College on web design and web development and how to use HTML. And I found a series of online videos that was pretty much dead on to what I was wanting to show my students. And so I used those. And I didn't have to actually create those myself. So that's some of the, there's other technologies. We have technologies like the one I'm using here. So Zoom, doing webinars for your online courses. So Denny, you said you're in South Carolina, right?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay. So yeah, we're able to give you this webinar. You know, I'm in Macomb, Illinois, and you're in North Carolina. So this is something that you can use for your online courses, whether it be to have a full class webinar or to have a one-on-one with your students. One option would be to even set up one-on-one introductions with your students. Just set a time with each student, connect with the Zoom, and just kind of talk to them and get to know them, let them get to know you. A great way to engage with your students over the internet. Also a great way to have office hours as well. So you could set up a certain time during the day that you will be in the Zoom room, and your students can actually go to the link and maybe come in there and ask you some questions. So all different kinds of things to consider when using technology to help your students meet the learning objectives, help connect with them, and engage with them. So communication is a big one here. Obviously, you don't have any face-to-face interaction when you're in an online course. So communication is going to be key. And here are some ideas that you might take for communicating with your students other than the Zoom stuff that I was talking about. One of the things I like to do is send a welcome letter. So the weekend or even a full week before the course starts, what I like to do is send out a welcome letter to all my students. And it's just kind of a little nudge that says, hey, you know, here we're going to start this course here in about a week. Here's what to expect. Here's how you access the course and things like that. You can send the syllabus with that. I usually don't. I usually wait till the course starts and let them access the syllabus then. But that would be something that you could also include with the welcome letter. Excuse me. Announcements. This is a tool in Western Online. And I'm going to show you kind of some examples of how I use the announcements tool. Basically, what I like to do is provide an announcement at the beginning of each week that basically just kind of gives an overall statement of what's going to happen during the week and what they need to click on to get started. Email is another thing. Obviously, you can email back and forth with your students. I do recommend that you let them know what email you prefer to use. So everybody has a Gmail account here at WIU. So let them know if that's the preferred communication method that you want them to use. And then let them know, give them kind of an approximate time on when to expect a response from you. So if, you know, they send you an email, let them know, you know, in your syllabus, you know, I will respond within 24 to 48 hours, something like that, just so they have kind of a gauge on what to expect when they reach out using email. I recommend checking into the course at least once a day. You know, check for any submitted assignments, anything like that, anything in the discussions, especially if you have a Q&A discussion, which I'll talk about when I show you my example course. But communication is a big one, and it's important to let them know how you want to communicate and what to expect with the communication. Because you don't have that, you know, and this goes with anything, you don't have that face-to-face interaction, as I said, and so you can't clear up any issues or any questions that students have. So, you know, in an online or hybrid course where you meet once a week or something like that, not online, but a hybrid course, you know, you'll meet that once a week and they can come up to you and ask you those questions. Well, here in a fully online course, we don't have that luxury. So we need to make sure that the communication is pretty clear. Ways of engaging your students. We have some tools within the system, within Western Online that you can use. And there's some external tools like the Zoom one that I talked about. But the two biggies in Western Online, other than email, is there's the chat and the discussion tool. Now the chat tool is a synchronous, real-time tool where you go into the chat room at the same time the students come into the chat room. You set that time ahead of time. And you have a live chat. And the chat room in Western Online is super easy to use. When you create it, you basically give it a name, a description if you want, and click Save. And then you click on it to enter the room, and that's it. Your students click on it, they enter the room, and then you just start typing away. This is synchronous, like I said. So the tool will record your chats. It'll log that, and you can access that to go back and read later, and so can your students as well. So the chat tool is another great way to have live office hours. So you could set a time during the week, you know, between 9 and 10 on Tuesdays, Thursdays, whatever. Let your students know I will be in this room, the chat room at these times, and you can come in there and ask me a question. Another thing you can do with chat is you can set up either a general chat, which is just the normal regular chat where everybody can get in, or you can set a private one, and you can choose one or multiple students to only allow them into the chat room to participate. So some examples of using this one-on-one, obviously, but you could also maybe set up groups. If you're having them do like a group assignment, you could set up a group chat for each one of the groups where you get in with the 3 or whatever members in that group, and you discuss the project and work on it that way, and nobody else in the course can get in to that particular chat. Discussions used quite a bit. I use this tool quite a bit in my best practices in teaching online. And this is an asynchronous tool. And it's a little more convenient in that the students can go in and answer when they have time to do it. Obviously, you'll set some guidelines, you know, a date range on which they can access it and get in there, and maybe put a due date when they have to respond by a certain date. And this is basically, you set this up, you ask a question, any requirements that you might have. So you might say, you need to respond to this question by this date, and reply to 2 other of your students by this date, to try and get a discussion going. One of the tools that the options in the discussion tool that I like is you can make it to where the students cannot see any other posts until they've made their initial post. And the reason this comes in handy is it prevents students from coming in, reading everybody else's posts, and kind of using that to get an idea of what to put for their answer. This prevents them from seeing any of that until they make their initial post. Then once they do that, all the other ones open up and they can go ahead and go through and read them. But that's one of the options I like in the discussions tool. Course management. So this is pretty important here. Clean and organized. I like to make my online courses very straightforward. So when a student logs in and they go into the course homepage, they immediately know what they're supposed to do. Or it takes just a few seconds for them to read a quick instruction to know exactly where they're supposed to go and what they're supposed to do. And I do this every week. So like I said, I posted an announcement at the beginning of the week, which I'll show you an example of. And this will really help clear up any confusion from your students on what they need to do within the course itself. One of the things I also recommend is to hide or delete unused items to prevent any further confusion. So grade items, let's say you've created a few grade items, you decided you're not going to use those or whatever. If a student goes into the grade book and they see those grade items, they're going to think, oh, this is something I've got to do at some point. I don't see it anywhere else in the syllabus. What is this? I don't get it. So you can, if you do want to keep them in the idea that you might use them later, you can hide them so the students can't see them. And same with any of the other stuff, so assignments and quizzes. So if you've created an assignment, you decide, or you can't decide whether you're going to use it or not, go ahead and hide it. There's a hide feature on pretty much all of the tools, or a date range where you could just put it out of the date range so they can't see it. And then they don't see that stuff and get confused and think that it's something that they've got to do. Might create some unneeded anxiety in terms of what they've got to do. And the announcements is a big one. I've seen this a lot. So the announcements tool, when you post an announcement, it gives you an option for an end date. And what I've seen a lot is people don't use that. And so they keep posting announcements and they just stack up. Now the students have the ability to click, there's a little X that you can click to dismiss that announcement. but a lot of times they don't know that they can do that. And what happens is the announcements just stack. And by default, the announcements tool is above the course content. So it just kind of pushes all the course content down. And so they have to scroll to even get to that stuff. So any unused or outdated announcements, go ahead and either delete or hide those is what I recommend. What I do is I put an end date on all my announcements. So if I've got week 2 coming up, I'll set it to start at the beginning of week 2, and then I'll set it to end when the end of week 2 comes and we're ready for week 3. Because in week 3, the week 2 announcement is pretty much obsolete at this point, so there's no need to keep it in there. So I schedule all that stuff ahead of time when I build the course, and when you do that, as you're going through the course, you don't have to worry about it. The system will just take care of it using the dates that you set. It requires a little upfront work, but it's worth it in the end and keeping things clean and not having to worry about it. So detailed schedule and syllabus, this is basically what I've been talking about, is keeping things clear so they know exactly what they're supposed to do. And we have the Western Online online course checklist, which I'll show you. I'll show you where you can access that. And when you develop an online course for the first time, what we do is we put that course through this checklist to make sure it has certain things. And then after that, as you teach the course in the future, you don't have to do it every time you teach it. It's just the initial time that you go to teach that particular course. Feedback kind of goes along with the communication that I was talking about. It is a form of communication. And grades is a big one. So if you have students submitting assignments and quizzes and discussions and things like that, and they don't get any feedback on any of that, that's not good. They don't know how they're doing. So I recommend feedback for anything that they submit. Now, one of the things I will mention is in discussions. This is what I do. So I post a discussion question, and when they make their initial response, their answer to that question, I will reply to that. But as that particular thread builds and you get other students replying to it, and it just kind of builds and gets a lot of posts, I don't reply to all of those. I'll go through and read them, and then if I see where they're getting off track, I may go in there and kind of make a post to kind of set them back on the right path. But I do not reply to every single post that a student makes. That would take forever, and that's pretty much impossible. But I do make a reply to their initial post, whether it's just to confirm that they're on the right track or to correct them or whatever. And then for things like projects and quizzes, now the quizzes tool gives you several different ways of leaving feedback. You can leave an overall feedback. You can leave feedback just in the gradebook, and that works for everything. And you can even leave feedback for each individual question. So you can go in and look at their submission and look at each question and what they answered, and there's an option for feedback in there. So there's several different ways, several different ways of leaving feedback in quizzes. The gradebook itself, there's an option for feedback for every single item in the gradebook, and so you could do that. I generally leave all my feedback there, so I give them their grade, put the feedback in the gradebook, nice job, this was correct, or sorry, this is not correct, please see this page of the book, something along those lines. But I do consider feedback basically a form of communication and to keep it going. Okay, some of the difficulties you might run into, obviously, is the technology. That's usually where you'll run into issues. One of the things that I like to tell people is to keep in mind that for the most part, you will be the first stop for tech support for students. When they run into an issue, you're the first person they're probably going to contact. And if it's a matter of, hey, I don't know how to submit to my assignment, that's something that you can provide them with. But if they're having connection issues, things like that, you'll probably just want to send them to UTech, and they can help them take care of that things. Or if they need to install special software and they're having issues doing that, you can send them to the help desk. And one of the things I also like to mention is don't let technology get in the way. If you're finding that either you or your students are spending more time trying to figure out the technology than you are working on the course content and objectives, probably a good sign to try something a little bit different. Time management is also something to really get good at, both for the instructor and for students. I think a lot of people come into an online course either as an instructor or a student, not realizing the time requirements to teach the course and to take the course. Usually a lot of reading, things like that. So time management is a skill that comes in handy. As with anything, you'll want to anticipate problems and have a backup plan. So if you're using a certain technology, have a backup plan in case it doesn't work. Kind of ties in with the don't let the technology get in the way. Those are some of the difficulties that you'll run into. Hardware, software, you never know. Okay, so some of the tips and tricks. I think what I'm going to do is go over to Western Online and give you a look at my best practices online course to kind of tie in with what I've been talking about here and let you see some of that stuff. And then I'll probably go back and forth to here to make sure I touch on all of these. Here is the home page for my best practices course. Now, I took this over from somebody else, and I've been trying to improve on it every semester. One of the things that I have not added that I want to add is more video. But in this home page, so the course hasn't started yet, but the very first announcement that I have here, it says, "Welcome, Chad." Now, if you were to be in this course, you would see your name. Okay, so if Denny was in here, it would say, "Welcome, Denny." And what that is, how that's being done is using this thing called replace strings. Okay, so if I edit this particular announcement, I'll show you what that looks like. Here's a replace string right here. And it's a little squiggly bracket, and then first name, all one word, and then a closing bracket. Now I have a workshop, or I'm sorry, a tip sheet on our website that lists all of the different replace strings that you can use. And I use this to kind of help personalize things. And so a student comes in, they see their name, and it kind of personalizes it for them. I was teaching a broadcasting course a couple of semesters ago, and it was an online or a face-to-face course, but I was using Western Online as a supplemental tool, and I was using this replace string. And I actually had students say to me, "Do you really type in all of our names for each one of those?" And of course I said, "Sure I do," But yeah, they busted me. But it's a great way to personalize. And the two probably most useful replace strings is the first name, last name. So you could do this again with last name, and it'll show the last name as well. And what it's doing is basically pulling information from the user information from the system. So you do have to keep in mind, so if somebody goes by Bill, but they're in the system as William, it's going to say, "Welcome, William," because it's pulling that information. So things like that you have to keep in mind. Org unit name, so this will pull basically the title of the course and stick that in there, okay? So if I were to change the title of the course for whatever reason, this would automatically be updated, and I wouldn't have to worry about that. So in this announcement, I've also got my end date, like I was talking about. So after this first week, this will automatically disappear after the first week of the course, and it doesn't remain there. But what I've done here is I've given this little welcome message. It says, "Hi, Chad," and then it'll replace with their name. "Welcome to the Best Practices course. Please click the course information Start Here module to get started." So this lets them know right away what they need to do first. Tells them they need to click here, and it even has a Start Here, a little note here to let them know that that's where they need to start. Now, when it comes up to week 2 or week 1, I have another announcement that talks about what to do for week 1. So if I go to my announcements tool, I can show you. Here's all my list of announcements. So week 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then a welcome, and then a couple other things. Okay, so the week 1 announcement, if I edit this, you'll see that it's supposed to start on the 1st and end on the 8th. So I've got this date set. It'll automatically pop up. I don't have to worry about it. It tells them what to expect for week 1 and tells them what they need to click on to start for that, which is the week 1 basics module, which is this one here. And so I have an announcement for each week to let them know what they're supposed to do. So it makes it clear, hopefully clears up any confusion on what to do once they get into the page, and we don't have any issues there. Another thing I like to do is create basically a resources or quick links widget. So you can create custom widgets in Western Online. And put whatever you want into it. And what I've done is I've put links to some of the big things. So the course goals, course materials, organization, and the course schedule. This is basically all stuff that's been pulled from the syllabus. All this stuff should be in your syllabus anyway, but this just kind of gives them a quick link to that stuff. So if they go, okay, what are we doing next week? They can quickly click on course schedule, lets them know, okay, so for week 2, this is what we're going to be doing. So it provides an easy access to some of that important information. And then I also give them other resources like the technical support page, so they can contact UTech if they need to, the requirements for Western Online. And then because this is a CITR course, I give links to like our tutorials and our FAQ page and things like that. So this is something that I like to provide in an online course. And then this is another thing that I use. So I use discussions in this course pretty extensively. And one of the discussions that I create is called a Q&A community discussion. And what this is a discussion that I won't even, will probably read some of the information to make sure that they're correct, but for the most part, I don't make any posts in here. This is for them as students to communicate with each other and ask each other questions. So it's a way to get them to basically start communicating and hopefully helping each other out. Or just talk about anything. So I put in the description, use this Q&A community discussion to ask questions of your fellow students or simply have an open discussion on any topic. The idea for this is to help each other out, get ideas, or simply get to know one another. Okay, so I leave this on the home page, and this creates easy access to that. Then we have our content browser, and in here this kind of goes with, I'll get to release conditions here in a minute, but naming conventions. So I have seen where a lot of people will just put week 1. Week 2, week 3, or unit 1, unit 2. And, that's okay, at least it's organized, but it's hard to find things. So if you're in week 4 and a student says, you know what, I want to reread what we were talking about with communication. It's without these naming conventions, it's going to make it a little bit difficult for them to go in and find that. So because I've named this communication, collaboration, community, it should make it a little easier for them to find what they need. So just a short name description of what each module contains will really help. Release conditions is another thing that I use. And what this does is it allows you to release certain items based on what the students have done. Now, I'm not using it in this course. I'm using the dates mostly. But what it does is you can say, do not release week 2 until they've submitted to the week 1 journal, for example. And so I could set a release condition using my content tool here. And basically every item in Western Online, every tool will allow you to do this. So if I want to put a release condition on week 2, for example, if I select week 2 and I go up in here, my date and restriction options are here. And here's a release condition option, so I can create this. So if I click create, it's going to ask me, okay, what type of condition do you want? And let's say I want them to submit to that journal. That journal is an assignment that I created in the assignments tool. So I'll find the assignments section and say I want them to submit to a certain folder. And then I tell it which one I want them to submit to. So this will prevent week 2 from showing up until they've submitted to the week 1 journal. Okay, and so this could be different for different students. So one student may submit to it and it releases. Another student didn't submit to it, so they can't access that information. And you can do this with anything. So here, the condition type, you can see there's several different things that you can basically lay out that needs to happen before it releases certain things. So this is just another tool that you can use to help guide what they're having access to. Whoops. Now the other tip that I have in here is sending an email. I generally recommend you stay away from the Western Online email tool. It is so clunky and just does not work very well. But there is an easier way if you do want to send an email within Western Online. And it does, when you send an email from Western Online, it does forward to their Gmail. So they will still get it in their Gmail. And even when they reply, it'll come to Gmail and Western Online. But if you do want to send an email, let me show you the direct way first, and you'll see what I'm talking about with the problem with this. So if I go to communication and I go to email, if I want to compose an email, it takes like 6 or 7 clicks. So compose an email, which is 1. I have to, let's see. See, it's even confusing. I don't even remember. 2. Oh yeah, I have to click address book. Then I have to select everybody I want to send it to and click 2. Then I have to add recipients, put in my subject, type in my stuff, and hit send up at the top. Seems like a lot, okay? I'm going to cancel that. Now, you may not know there's a class list in every one of your courses. So if I go to communication, go to class list, you'll see everybody enrolled in this course, whether they're a student or instructor or whatever. You'll see your name as well. Here's a really quick way to send an email to everybody. Click the checkbox at the top here to select everybody and just click the email link. And that's it. So there was two clicks. Now you might want to unclick yourself if you don't want to receive it and unclick the demo student. That way you don't send that to the demo student. Doesn't really matter, but that's a much easier way to send the email through Western Online as opposed to using the email tool itself. Okay. A couple of resources. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I do teach the Best Practices in Teaching Online course. If you want to take that course, this link here will go to our website. And basically what that does is takes you to this page with some information about the course. So we have the introduction. If you want to register, we have a registration form here that you can click on. And you basically will choose the semester that you want to take it. And then I will get that information and put you into the course. Spring semester, the course begins on the first Monday of February. Fall semester begins the first Monday of September. And then summer is usually different every summer, so I put that as to be announced. So People have vacations and things like that, and we have workshops and stuff that I work around. So the summer is usually different. This summer, excuse me, this summer is already full. But like I said, you'll click the registration link here to register. There's some information here, the course objectives, the course outline at a glance, and then the syllabus. It's a PDF here, so you can go through that. This is an interactive syllabus with links. And then the WIU online course checklist that I was telling you about. If you're building an online course, you can click this here, and you can go through this checklist to kind of make sure that you're on track with providing all of this stuff. And basically what you'll do is you'll build your course, and then we will run the course through this checklist. You have to sign it. Either Don or myself or Roger can sign it when it's all done, and then your department chair also needs to sign it to sign off on the course so it can go ahead and go through. So that is on the best practices webpage. Another thing that I like to point out, if I get on the right page here, is although here at CITR our main focus is training faculty, but we did see a need for something for students. So we went on ahead and we built this what's called Western Online Student Orientation course. This is a self-register course. Let me show you how to do this here. From the Western Online homepage, so where you see your list of courses, up in communication, if I click on that, there's a link in here for self-registration. And what that does is it takes you to a page with any course in Western Online that allows for self-registration. And this one right here, Western Online Student Orientation, I'm already in there, so it doesn't allow me to click on it. But you simply click on that to enroll into the course. This is something that you can send to your students in that welcome letter that I was talking about. So what this course does is it runs them through the basics of Western Online, how to submit an assignment, how to submit a quiz, how to post to a discussion. And it also contains information on how to be a successful online student with tips on how to basically take an online course. So you could, in that welcome letter, say, hey, go through this course. It's self-registered. There's directions here on the Western Online homepage as well on how to, the steps that I just showed you. And that's right here, Western Online Orientation Registration. So you can send them this link. That'll show them how to register for it. And what the course will do is, once they've gone through it, there's a final quiz at the end, and they have to receive an 80% or higher, and then they can print a certificate. And so you can have them either send you that certificate or take a picture of it and send it to you if it's an online course, so that you know that they went through it. So if this is something you'd like to have them do, you can do that, and you can send that to them in the welcome letter. So let me see if I can find that real quick. So you can see what it looks like. So here it is. So this is what the course looks like. Now, you may or may not know that as of July 31st, I think, Western Online is going to look different. The functionality remains exactly the same, but everything is just going to look different. So it won't quite look like this, but it'll basically run the same. So this is the course, what it looks like. The students will go through. Again, I've put to begin, click this module down below so they know exactly what to do. And they go through all the information, how to succeed as an online student, how to use the communication tools, and etc. So this is a good resource for the students to get to know Western Online if they don't already.
Can we sign up for that also?
Sure can, yeah.
As a faculty member?
Yep, so if you want to go through it and see what it's You know, it gives you a better idea of what the students are going to experience. And also the best practices course that I teach, you'll be a student in an online course, which gives you that experience as well.